Alright, you know the drill. This time we're talking about twin movies. No, definitely not.
How does it work, Mr. Subway Sandwich? Just tell me more.
Just Jared's fine.
Call you Jared? Okay,
What?
sure.
The twin movies we're talking about today are movies that released around the same time that have a similar setting, genre, and plot. First, we need to look at exactly why this happens. Wikipedia says it's basically two studios getting either a similar interest in a topic at the same time, or one studio hearing about the other's plans and making a movie to compete. But the way I like to see it is someone who isn't really your friend showing up with the same outfit as you.
I don't know how this happened. I think I guess we have the same taste.
Just insane. She's insane.
So let's look at some examples of twin movies and see which ones won in the box office and critically, and see why. Also, I do the whole history thing a lot, don't I? Also, I haven't seen a lot of these movies, but I just got done watching the Mario movie from 1993, so you see where my priorities are. This is more or less an analytical look and not really how I feel about the movies. Anyways, let's start with a pretty popular example, A Bug's Life versus Ants. Ants is about an ant named Z, played by Woody Allen.
It was the 90s.
Trying to find his place in the world while also falling in love with the princess and facing trouble from an evil ant named General Mandible. A Bug's Life is about a clumsy ant named Flick who falls in love with the princess and causes trouble for his colony with an evil grasshopper named Hopper, played by Kevin Spacey.
It was the 90s.
The story behind these twin movies is actually pretty interesting. Jeffrey Katzenberg, one of the founders of DreamWorks, actually used to work for Disney, so when he left, he already known a little bit about A Bug's Life, and Ant started production using the same computer animation company Pixar had previously used. Pixar was not happy about this, scheduling A Bug's Life to release the same weekend as DreamWorks' original debut film, The Prince of Egypt. Katzenberg did not like this, so he moved the release date of Ants from spring of 1999 to October of 1998, a whole month before A Bug's Life. Prince of Egypt ended up coming out in December, but only one of these bug movies could win. Both films were critically successful, but Ants on a budget of $42 million made $17 million opening weekend, $171 million overall. A Bug's Life on a budget of $120 million made $363 million overall with a higher opening weekend. That's double of what Ants made. The popularity of Toy Story definitely helped, and DreamWorks was the new kid on the block. Other than the beef, both of these movies aren't really talked about today. They're definitely overshadowed by the company's later outings, especially A Bug's Life, which is sandwiched between two Toy Story movies. Further proving being the middle child fucking sucks. This wasn't the only fight Disney and DreamWorks would have in 2021. What the fuck? This wasn't the only fight Disney and DreamWorks would have in 1998. They may have been the ones that got their ideas stolen with A Bug's Life, but they were the ones playing dirty with these next two movies. Deep Impact and Armageddon are both about trying to stop an asteroid from destroying Earth. Disney's Touchstone Pictures made Armageddon with director Michael Bay and producer Jerry Bruckheimer, and Deep Impact was made by DreamWorks and Paramount Pictures with lesser known director Mimi Leder, but a producer you might know by the name of Steven Spielberg. The writer of Deep Impact claims that a production president at Disney took notes on the idea while they were having lunch, and it's honestly such a dirty move. Critics reviewed both movies with negative to mixed reviews, but Armageddon blew Deep Impact out of the water. Not as much as The Bug's Life did the Ants, but enough to make Armageddon the highest grossing movie of 1998. And it might even be more culturally relevant, giving us I Don't Want to Miss a Thing by Aerosmith, and further fueling Michael Bay as a promising and upcoming blockbuster director.
It was the 90s.
Alright, so this is one of the more infamous examples, and one that I remember very well. Friends with Benefits and No Strings Attached are both 2011 movies about white people having casual sex, but then realizing that they actually love each other. My personal favorite genre of movie. I was 9 turning 10 in 2011, and I had no concept of relationships or casual sex, but even I remember these two movies and wondering why they made the same thing twice. Crazy enough, No Strings Attached was actually called Friends with Benefits. It was retitled to obviously avoid confusion, and there was actually a 6-month gap between the movie's releases. So which one ended up winning? Neither of these movies won. They made pretty much the same amount of money, both got mixed to average reviews, and they both starred 4 huge names at the time. They should have released these on the same exact day like a Pokemon game. The only difference is that one has Greta Gerwig and Ludacris. So this one is something I don't really think people consider an example, but This Is the End and The World's End are kind of movies that stand alone on their own. One's an Edgar Wright comedy capping off the narratively unconnected but similar Cornetto trilogy, and one is a meta ensemble cast with some of America's biggest comedic stars. They both just happen to be about the end of the world. Now I've seen both. This Is the End is more of a biblical apocalypse and The World's End is an alien invasion. But even then I remember thinking these two were pretty similar in 2013. Yes, I've been thinking about twin movies for over 10 years. But the story behind these two are just pure coincidence. This Is the End is based on a short from 2007 and The World's End was something Edgar Wright worked on since he was 21. Either way, they both came out that summer and This Is the End was a bigger hit on a bigger budget, but this is one of the least interesting cases. Speaking of Seth Rogen, one that I remember was his movie Observe and Report, and thinking it was similar to Paul Blart Mall Cop. Yes, that one. It was definitely weird. Seth believes that Paul Blart ripped him off. Observe and Report is a much darker movie with its content and comedy, and Paul Blart's more of a family film. Hell, I've seen it. It was advertised all over kid channels, while I remember seeing Observe and Report ads when I watched raunchier stuff like MTV. Paul Blart obliterated this one, and it doesn't help that it came out first and was more accessible to audiences. It began filming first, but in this video, Seth mentions this.
The movie Paul Blart Mall Cop came out like a few months before and kind of fucked us. We heard rumblings about Paul Blart, and then and then years later I heard that they actually got the script and ripped us off, even though they're very different movies. Paul Blart made, I think, 6 times the amount of money of Observer Report, though. One way or another, I'm not thrilled with Paul Blart Mall Cop in relation to how Observer Report was received.
Let's talk about 2 movies that I was always aware of, but never actually considered them to be twin movies. Apparently, a lot of people consider Despicable Me and Megamind to be twin movies, but I never saw it. Maybe it's because Despicable Me is some kind of an elevated, normal cartoon kind of world, and Megamind is just full on superheroes and whatnot. Both films released in 2010, which is ironic because I had no problem seeing the similarities in Friends with Benefits and No Strings Attached, and This Is the End and The World's End, 4 movies that I had no business even caring about at such a young age. So as you probably know, Illumination's Despicable Me and DreamWorks' Megamind are both about supervillains and their villainy. Were they ever really competitors though? They're similar movies, but I can't really finally think about one being made to compete with the other. It's probably just parallel thought. But anyways, which one ended up being the breadwinner? The new movie starring Will Ferrell from the animation powerhouse DreamWorks, or the new film from the relatively new animation studio Illumination? Okay, that's a rhetorical question. Despicable Me, the film that spawned 2 sequels, 2 spin-offs, and a theme park attraction and started the highest grossing animated film franchise of all time, or Megamind, which had a meme resurgence a year or 2 ago? I think we know who the real winner was, even though I really think this wasn't supposed to be a competition in the first place. Let's get back to actual competition. 2013's Olympus Has Fallen and White House Down. Maybe this should have been a Pokemon release. So Sony made White House Down with Channing Tatum and Jamie Foxx, directed by closeted arsonist Roland Emmerich. Millennium Films made Olympus Has Fallen with Gerard Butler and Aaron Eckhart, directed by Antoine Fuqua. The 2 were directly going against each other, and on purpose too. As you could probably tell, White House Down is about the White House being down because of a terrorist attack, and Olympus Has Fallen is about the White House being down because of a terrorist attack. These are the exact same movie. White House Down made more money on a bigger budget, but even though Olympus Has Fallen lost this one, it actually spawned a trilogy. London Has Fallen in 2016 and Angel Has Fallen in 2019. Also, this is the best tagline of all time. And apparently there's 3 more movies in production. Whatever, someone's dad is probably very happy. Sony apparently didn't feel like trying to compete, which I think is good because I think they would have started to get desperate. So those are twin movies. Studios really want to get at each other so much they take a script floating around and try to race the other studio to make it. It's not exactly what I call a smart move, but they've been doing it for decades, so what do I know? Do DreamWorks really think they could beat Disney by releasing their Ant movie first? Was Sony maliciously trying to bury Olympus Has Fallen with their own copy? It's interesting how buried the lines can get. Is Captain America Civil War a direct response to Batman v Superman, or was that always the plan? Hell, we get horror movies around the same time this year. They might have made them at different times, but they usually release close together. Are those competing? This topic is interesting and it really shows how much Hollywood values the game. It's such a stupid concept on paper, and I kind of don't want them to stop doing it because it's always interesting seeing which ones end up winning. As of recording, the next 2 Avengers movies are releasing in the same year. Are these twin movies, or are they companion pieces providing a slightly different Avengers experience to the audience, giving them incentive to watch the other one just to see what the differences are? Oh my god. This is the Pokemon release.